Today, you are going to get a front row seat to the incredible Transvaal Golden Lions and Gauteng Lions career of the legendary Kobus Wiese. He's been a guest here before. Kobus, it's great to have you back on Front Row Rugby.
Thanks, Peter. Always a pleasure.
Kobus, you began your career with Boland and then you moved to Western Transvaal, as they were called in those days, and then to Transvaal. Tell me about how it worked out that you ended up at Ellis Park.
Well, I was in school in Paarl in the Boland and then started playing for the Boland as a youngster and then got an opportunity via my coach at that stage, who was the coach at Western Transvaal, as it was called, as you know. And now the Leopards, Professor Mani Spalmer. He needed a lock. They were at that stage the Currie Cup B champions, a really good side with the likes of Robert de Preer, Dion Oosthuizen, Flip van der Merwe. These guys were playing Fafa, Knutse. All these guys were playing for Western Transvaal, and I saw it as an opportunity, and then grabbed it and ended up in Potch, which was two really good years. I really enjoyed my studies there and playing for the Millibura, as they called.
Sounds like a great story. Now, you know what, Kobus, very early on this channel, I had Vleis Versace on, and he told me that in those days, when you were making your debut as a youngster, a veteran player from the opposition would try and get a punch in, almost as if to say, welcome to the Currie Cup. Did you have a similar experience?
Yeah, it was always tough for a youngster, especially in the forwards. I made my debut. I just turned 20, for Boland, and then there were established guys like Errol Tobias and Martin van der Merwe, Frans Marais, Chris Luman, Richard Visagie. All these guys have been playing for years for Boland, and as a snot-nosed youngster, it's quite tough, So they sort of try and bully you, the opposition. I made my debut against Natal, now called the Sharks, and they already had a very established side. Andre Botha, the very Vleis Versace, like you've mentioned, he was playing for them. Cliffy Brown, Rob Hankinson, these guys were all seasoned players. So, of course, they try and sort of bully you and keep you in your cage. But I suppose that's part of survival,
And then I have to ask you, when you became a veteran, did you hand some of that out yourself, or had the game become too professional by then?
I'll take the fifth on that.
So, Kobus, I was looking through some of the footage, and there's not really a lot out there on YouTube, but we do know that Transvaal team in the early and mid-90s was formidable. You guys won the Lion Cup 3 years in a row. You won the Currie Cup 2 years in a row, but you did get to the Currie Cup final as well 4 years in a row. The first two of those actually ended in defeat. How much of a sucker punch was that feeling?
Well, it was a very special side. It was regarded in '93 and '94 as the best provincial side in world rugby. I mean, we won, as you said, fortunate to have won everything, and it was 5 Currie Cups in a row. I mean, the first one when Harry Viljoen was the coach, we played against Northern Transvaal. That was my first Currie Cup final at Loftus in Pretoria. When Nas Botha was a fly-off, and it just again that day Nas just showed why he was ranked as probably the best fly-off in world rugby tactically and overall. I mean, he was really a genius, and he kicked us to pieces that day. We came as the favorite, but he was just at his very best. And then 5 Currie Cups in a row, we lost that one, and then the next one we lost against the Sharks, Natal, and the victory came our side from 93, 94. 93, you remember, we played again the Sharks, but in Durban. It was a huge game. It was probably 2 Springbok sides playing each other, and we pulled that one through. We really had a good game. And then the next one in 94 was against the Free State. As you might recall, it wasn't at the Free State Stadium because they were busy renovating, so we played at the cricket ground next door, which was quite unusual. It was a very tough surface, and at that stage we put up a record score against the Free State, I think 50-odd points against them, which was a record for a Currie Cup final. But this was a special side, I must say. It was a side that Kitch Christie put together, that won everything. In '93, it started with the Yardley Gold Cup, the Super Sports Series in the early season, then the Lion Cup, the Super Rugby title against Auckland, the formidable Auckland side at Ellis Park, with 70,000 people. It was an amazing game of rugby as well. You know, the likes of Sean Fitzpatrick, Tui Gamala, Michael Jones, all these guys which played for the All Blacks at that stage were forming the backbone of this Auckland side, which was also regarded as a brilliant side. But we had an outstanding season. I must say I was very fortunate to be part of that team, which to this day I regard as probably the best provincial side I've ever played in.
We'll talk about Kitch in a second, but I just want to go back to that 1992 period when Harry Viljoen was in charge of the team. Talk to me about him and his coaching philosophy.
Harry was a guy that came on the scene with great new ideas. He was regarded maybe as a as a loose cannon at some stage by people because he brought new, fresh ideas to the table. I remember we had a guy called Chris van Lochenberg who was a fitness guru who came to the fore, and we frowned upon this guy. It's strange. Well, we thought it was strange because we've never seen these fitness training methods for rugby players, which he brought from his gym days, you know, and we thought it was quite strange. But he proved himself. Chris is a very bright guy, very knowledgeable, and he got us fit, you know, extremely fit. One thing Harry really were serious about is you can't play rugby if you're not superbly fit. Same with Kitch, and I think same with any knowledgeable coach. But Harry was a guy that brought a new brand, a new style of rugby to the Lions, to Transvaal, an exciting style of rugby, running rugby, which we also enjoyed, and it actually attracted crowds to watch this team play because they played an exciting brand of rugby.
I said we'd talk about Kitch as well. What was it about him that was so special?
I think to start with, Kitch was a guy that had good knowledge of people. He knew personalities. He knew how to work with certain individuals because I think very much true, the fact that you can't treat every guy the same. Every guy's personality is different. As long as you gel them together, that they buy into the same game plan, the same dream, the same philosophy to then make up a team. I've seen teams and I've played in teams that were very talented individually but did not perform as a unit for whatever reason. And the other way around, I've seen in mediocre sides, with all respect, but they gel together and performed very well as a team. And I suppose that's one of the things that some coaches has that ability and some unfortunately don't. And Kitch was one that really had that ability. He could gel people together off and on the field, very, very important. He knew which guys to room together, which guys that will make up a special unit, you know, that will understand what they're doing, understand the philosophy, buy into the philosophy, and play as a team, because it's a team sport. There's no point that you have the most brilliant, talented individuals, but they play for themselves and not for the team.
We did mention a little bit earlier that Transvaal won everything in sight. That included 3 Lion Cups in a row. How much of a shame do you think it is that competition doesn't exist anymore?
I thought it was a great competition. It was a more relaxed competition. And by saying that, then the Currie Cup, I'm not taking away anything of this cup, the coveted Lion Cup, which was a beautiful trophy in my opinion, and it also allowed all the teams in South Africa to participate. Even the Currie Cup B or the smaller units got an opportunity to participate against the bigger dogs, the bigger guns, which I think is a great idea. So that unfortunately is no longer, which I think is a shame. In the Currie Cup, you have to, it's strength against strength, which is a good thing. But the smaller sides sort of struggle to get their way into the Currie Cup. Even if they end up top of the Currie Cup B or the B section, it'll be very hard for them to get into those days into the Currie Cup.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video, why not consider becoming a patron? I'll put the link on the screen as well as in the description box, and a QR code on the screen for you as well. There will be great benefits for members. Let's get back to the interview. Kobus, I remember in 1998, the Blue Bulls won the Currie Cup, and Joos van der Westhuizen was their captain at that moment. And he commented, and I thought it was quite odd, he said that winning the Currie Cup was better than winning the World Cup. You won both of those trophies. What do you say?
Look, I think it's an interesting statement, and I do know this, to add on to what you said. there are many Springboks that I know of, not many, but there are Springboks who won a World Cup but never a Currie Cup, and it bothers them. They say that's something really missing in the trophy cabinet. I was fortunate to play in 5 Currie Cup finals, of which we won 2, and it's a special competition. Make no mistake about it. It's the oldest provincial competition in world rugby. It's one of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful, trophy in my opinion. And I can tell you this: I've been very fortunate that the lemonade from sipping the lemonade from that trophy is very special.
I have no doubt. And it was a golden period for the union, and you were obviously fortunate enough to be involved in that, led by Francois Pienaar. Talk to us a little bit about him and his leadership abilities.
I think every captain is different. I recall it was a huge controversy. You'll remember this in the World Cup where there had to be a choice made between Francois and Tiaan Strauss by the coaching staff. Now, obviously, as human and as a human nature, and as every coach will obviously first start with the core of the team that he coaches, the provincial side, when he becomes a national coach. I mean, it just makes all the sense in the world for lots of reasons. And at that stage, also, the Transvaal side were the best provincial side, so it was just logical that the core of this World Cup squad will be used to build a World Cup team that would hopefully win the World Cup. Francois was the captain of the Lions side, and obviously he would have been the captain of the World Cup side. Saying this, Tiaan Strauss, in my opinion, was he good enough to be in the World Cup squad? Absolutely, and he should have made up part of the World Cup squad. Unfortunately, the other side of the coin is this: that their personalities would have clashed. There's no doubt about that. It would not have been good for the team. I can mention also a Skalk Brits and a John Smith scenario, where I confronted Jake tongue-in-cheek, Jake White, and say, but Skalk Brits at that stage were by far the in-form hooker. And he said, yes, that might be true. But for the team, it's better than John Smith play because his leading abilities, leadership abilities, and his aura that he brings to the side will be better for the team. And that's exactly what I'm trying to say about Tiaan Strauss. I felt sorry for Tiaan. He's an outstanding player. He later played for Australia in the World Cup, as you would recall. But he was definitely good enough to be part of the 95 squad. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But for obvious reasons, and just discussed, it was unfortunately, that's the bad side of a coach. You know, you got to make sometimes those kind of decisions that may be popular on the one side, but very unpopular on the other.
Let's move upstairs. Dr. Louis Luyt was the man at the helm, and I think it's fair to say that he divided opinion. But obviously, I think from your point of view, you would see him in a more positive light. What can you tell us about him?
I think he was a remarkable man. Obviously, as you just said, you know, he had like all of us. You have friends and you have enemies. You have different opinions from different people. I think one must always judge somebody on if he brings the bacon home or not. Dr. Luyt certainly did. When he took over at Transvaal, they were financially in trouble. The Ellis Park Stadium were owing hundreds of millions to the financiers and so forth. And he turned it around into a profitable, very profitable union that very few other unions could say, if any. He paid off Ellis Park and he made the Transvaal team the most successful provincial team in world rugby. What more would you want from your president?
Indeed. And then going into 1996, rugby had become professional and there was this new competition called the Super 12. How much different was that to the Super 10?
Not really. It was exactly the same competition. They just added 2 teams, and as that grew, so it is a Super Rugby. I think is an incredible competition. It is the best of the Southern Hemisphere that play each other, as you know. It's very tough. I think it was physically and mentally more tough for the South African sides because of the traveling, the time zones, and so forth. You know, the jet lag, the so-called dreaded jet lag, and so forth. Which is true. It definitely exists. But that's just the way it is, you know. And it's a competition which I'm very sorry South Africa is no longer part of, which I believe is a mistake.
Very interesting indeed. Kobus, moving into 1998, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it was the Lions, the Cheetahs, and I think it was Northern Free State who combined to become the Cats. A lot of people at the time thought that would be the best South African Super Rugby team. because of the quality, especially from the Lions and the Cheetahs, but it didn't quite work out that way. Why do you think that was?
I think simply, it boils down to one thing. The Cats had no identity. Who were the Cats? How do you belong to a body that doesn't have history, that doesn't have culture, all those kind of things? Yes, the Cheetahs, yes, the Lions, but the Cats, no history whatsoever. And I think it was sort of a disaster from day one. It didn't work out and didn't last very long. Um, it's easier for a player to aspire to play for a team like the Lions, the Bulls, the Stormers, whoever who's got history, who's got character, and you want to play. You grow up wanting to play for that province. Want to wear that jersey. I see you wearing the Western Province jersey. Young kids in Western Province aspire to play in that jersey because of players before them, because of history. And so forth and so forth. So the Cats didn't have that. So it was a disaster from day one.
And speaking of history, the Currie Cup for so many years was the jewel in the crown of South African rugby. I think it's fair to say that that is not the case these days. What's your opinion on the way that the Currie Cup finds itself within South African rugby right now?
Obviously, the world stages open up, the URC and the Heineken Cup and so forth, which is great. And it's wonderful for South African sides to participate. But I hope the Currie Cup still has got legs. I believe it does because of the history, the rich history of the Currie Cup. I think the Currie Cup, maybe the focus shifts a bit for the Currie Cup. It becomes still a competition that any South African player would want to win, would want to lift and want to play in that competition. But also it becomes more and more a stepping stone, I think, for young talent coming through, identifying young talent, giving them opportunity to play at a certain level. And if they're good enough and if they make that level, then they step into a URC or a Heineken Cup or hopefully play for South Africa.
Okay, Kobus, who was your toughest opponent?
Yo, how long is a piece of string? It's like with all respect to that question, Peter, it's like I have this thing when they pick a cricketer of the century or a rugby player of the century, which is actually ludicrous. How do you compare a batsman with a bowler, with a wicketkeeper, with a fielder? Even in 10-year periods, everything changes: techniques, ball, bat, all those kind of things. So anyway, I've always maintained this, that I regard any guy that I play against as a tough opponent for the simple reason, and you have to respect him. If he plays at that level, he's definitely good enough. So make no mistake, it's always those guys with the not big names that rattles your cage. He wants to prove something as yourself when you made your debut. You would like to play for that province. You would like to be the best in your position. You would like to play for your country. So the young guns are always very, very dangerous. They had time to study the opposition, and you've got to be on your toes the whole time. I have great respect for all the people that I played against, and I also think you start to learn the strengths and the weaknesses of each opposition player. This guy is a great line-out jumper. That guy is very tough in the rucks and mauls. That guy with ball in hand is very difficult to bring to the ground. So bottom line is I respected every guy I played against.
Kobus, you represented Transvaal. They became the Gauteng Lions, then they became the Golden Lions. Is there a particularly funny moment that you can share with us from your time at Ellis Park?
Oh, there's plenty, and funny enough, there's always a hooker somewhere in the equation. They're a very different species. I'm not sure their mothers even love them, but that's just the way it is. Hookers are very special. I remember we played England in '94, and England had a rampant side. They just beat the Boks at Loftus, you will recall, and the next Saturday we played them at Ellis Park. They regarded us as a fourth test in that series because we had a really good side. So they picked that same test team that beat the Boks at Loftus to play us, a provincial side, at Ellis Park. Again, it was jam-packed, incredible atmosphere, and we really pumped. I mean, we had a special team, I must say. I was very fortunate to play in that side, and we drilled England at Ellis Park, and it was obviously chaos in the newspapers that a provincial side just beat the side that beat the national side. But anyway, so Martin Johnson was my direct opponent, and he sort of ruffled up Johan Leroux, but and so forth in a ruck. And now Joe, he was wanting to get payback time. So I said to him, during the game, just relax. It's a big piece of grass. It's 80 minutes. I'm sure you'll get a chance somewhere to sort of return the favor. And it was on the 22 in front of their post on the touchdown side of the restaurant, as you would remember. And it's the biggest punch that I've ever seen in my life. I mean, Joe just knocked Martin cold. The ref luckily didn't see this. So Martin was off the field and he was concussed, unfortunately, and he had to fly back. So that very next week, we played, the junior box played England in Kimberley. And there was a bit of a shuffle again. It was a very inexperienced referee. And you could just sense, Peter, there's going to be a scuffle. It's just, the time it's coming. It's building the tension. The guys were like really niggly. And Victor Ajomo, the flanker, was backing on the tight head side. I was behind Johan. And as the scrum hits, he pulled Johan's outside arm and it collapses. And we reform and it collapses again. And the third time, stands up and he says to the referee, "Come here." And the poor ref was like, really, yes, what is it? He says, and he points to Victor. He says, "Tell this oak that I've already sent his captain back home. Ask him, does he want to fly as well?"
That's a great story. Kobus, so what are you up to these days?
I'm in the coffee trade. So I'm not involved in coaching. I just don't think I've got the patience for it. But I try and give back to the game via television, involve with Super Sport and commentary. And I present the Monday night show, Super Rugby, which is a talk show with guests and so forth, which I really enjoy. It's good fun, and I try and make it as humorous as possible, but in the same time, with respect, informative as possible. And I hope I bring something to the table, to the game via that. And then in the coffee trade, we've been, Belinda and myself, we've been busy with the coffee trade for the last 23, 24 years. We have our own coffee brands, Wiesenhof Coffee and Cafe Dolce. We have our own roastery. That's quite a tough trade to be in, as you know, in the Middle East as well. Coffee is growing immensely in the world. We can't produce enough coffee, good coffee for people to drink, but that's interesting and exciting. And I think people are getting more and more knowledgeable about coffee as well by the day.
I've sipped some of that coffee and I've eaten at some of those restaurants and I've seen you and heard you on the TV many, many times. And all of those things are always a pleasure. Kobus, it was lovely having you on Front Row Rugby again. And I hope that we can have you on again in the future.
Thanks, my friend. Always, anytime. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for watching. This is part of a series I'm doing on players and their Currie Cup and Super Rugby careers. Some of those videos are appearing on your screen right now for you to go and enjoy. Kobus, as mentioned, was also a guest on Front Row Rugby earlier in the history of the channel, and that video is also on your screen right now where he discusses his Springbok career. See you next time.